Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you all an update to my Cardfight Vanguard Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion deck profile for post-generation Dragenesis. We finally got the boss monster of the Narukami Dragonic Kaiser deck, being Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood, the original cross ride to Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion that had the additional +5 critical pressure, and very happy to see that this card kept the same premise of that playstyle with its new form from the latest Cardfight Vanguard booster set. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the ride deck. For starters, we have the energy generator with our starter being Spark Kid Dragoon. When wrote upon, if you went second, draw a card. Our grade 1 is Red River Dragoon. When wrote upon by a grade 2 card with only Narukami for its clan, search your deck for up to 1 Eternal Thunderbolt, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. So the Eternal Thunderbolt order is one of the needed orders in the deck to utilize some of the playstyle of the Dragonic Kaiser deck. So just having an easy search power for this card is very, very useful. And also with this card having the added setup for that card, we can go into our grade 2 Thunderstorm Dragoon. When wrote upon by a grade 3 with only Narukami, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card with only Narukami for its clan, or 1 Eternal Thunderbolt from it among them, reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle the deck. More search power once again for the order or any of the other cards that share in the Narukami clan that we run in the deck as well. With our go-to boss monster in the deck being Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood. We're running the grade 3 in the ride deck, very similar to the Kagero setup, just for the fact that you can set up the original Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion just as easily in the Soul with some of the other cards we run in the deck. So better just to have the main go-to Vanguard that you want to be on for your main Vanguard to begin with. Before we go over the other grade 3s, we'll go over the order we've been talking about so far before, being Eternal Thunderbolt. We're running 3 copies of this card just for the fact that we do have a guaranteed search with our ride deck and then additional search power to get this card as well. This card can be played from the drop, and play this card if you have a Vanguard with Vermillion and its card name and only Narukami for its clan. Choose one of your Vanguards until end of turn. It gets continuous Vanguard. When your opponent's rearguard is hit by this unit and would be retired from rearguard, bind it instead of retiring. And on Vanguard continuous, if your opponent has no rearguards, all front row rearguards get plus 5,000 power. If you played this card from the drop, you bind this card. So not only can you use this card as a normal order, but when you use it, you have the option then to use it again from the drop zone as well. So multiple uses for you always to have this card ready to go during your turns when you play it. For the other grade 3s, we're running 3 more additional copies of Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, the Blood. So this is just so we can have the full Persona Ride power during your turn. If your soul has Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. And if your opponent's Vanguard's grade 3 or greater, it gets critical +1. And all your front row units rear guards get plus 5,000 as well. So an added plus 5 power on top of the potential Persona Ride, you could have a 15k boost to the entire front row, but the added additional critical trigger as long as you have your Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the soul to be able to do so. And on the Vanguard circle, once per turn, you can soul blast 1 until end of turn. When this unit would attack, choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards, and this unit battles all of the units on the chosen rear guard and your opponent's Vanguard. So not only can you just choose 2 of your opponent's Vanguard or rear guards, they can just battle all of those units. So very, very useful for that added pressure, just like the original Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. And on the Vanguard circle, once per turn at the end of the battle, this unit attacked. If you played a normal order this turn, your opponent's damage has 4 or less cards, discard a card from your hand, choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and deal it 1 damage. So sharing all of these similarities to Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, but on top of that, just having the additional plus 5 power and the critical +1. Very similar to the original Blood, and just easier setup to do so. We're also running 3 copies of our Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. The original copy, you just have to get this card into the soul. That's why we're running 3 copies of this card for that added setup. There are some newer cards that we run in the deck that definitely do help with that soul setup. So just 3 for what we need for that play. And the other grade 3s we run are the 4 copies of Rogue Kerr Hammer Dragon. When this unit attacks, if you played a normal order this turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 power until the end of the battle. At the end of the battle, counter+1, draw a card, and bind this unit. So just added boosted power that you can give to this unit on top of draw power by using our counterblast, and also using this card for the added setup for that counterblast is very useful for the fact that we don't have to use our counterblast anymore for our blood that we have as our Vanguard. And for the bind zone, when you play a normal order, if you have a Vanguard Vermillion and its card name and only Narukami for its clan, and you do not have a rearguard with the same name as this card, you may call it to rearguard, giving you more setup for another, additional rearguard attack to use against your opponent. For the grade 2s, we're running 4 copies of our go-to backup for Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion, being our Dragonic Death Scythe. During your turn on your rearguard, if your opponent's front row has no rearguards, it gets plus 5,000 power. And on rearguard, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with only Narukami for its clan, Soul Blast 2, choose one of your opponent's rearguards and bind it. If you do not bind a card, draw a card. So just more added bind options to be able to clear out your opponent's rearguards to get better usage of your Vanguard abilities or just the added playstyle, some of our other cards. The 4 copies of Bellicosity Dragon. This is the go-to card to set up more or less the Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in your soul. If you have a Vanguard with only one clan and your G zone has no cards, which we meet both of the following for this deck, this card gets all the following. When it's placed on rearguard, Energy Blast 3, put a card from your hand to the soul and draw 2 cards. So then this is the card that will place the Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion into the soul to be able to draw 2 cards and set up our blood play. And on rearguard, when your Vanguard attacks, this unit gets plus 5 until end of turn. Added plus 5 power, but once again, just set up for our soul to have the needed Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion. We're also running 3 copies of our Demonic Dragon Nymph Cassin. If you have a Vanguard with only Narukami for its clan, this card is only from Narukami and works for the 1 clan restriction for the deck as well. And when it's placed on rearguard from hand, if you have a Vanguard with only Narukami for its clan, look at the top 7 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 card with Vermillion in its card name and only Narukami for its clan, or up to 1 Eternal Thunderbolt from among them. Reveal it, put it in your hand, and shuffle your deck. If you revealed a card, choose a card from your hand and put it into the soul or discard it. So along with Bellicosity, we have another card to set up a Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion into the soul for our Blood Vanguard. And when this unit attacks, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard with Vermillion and its card name, and also you can counter +1, it gets plus 10 to the end of battle. At the end of battle, bind this card. So just the added pressure to attack with this unit, but just like Bellicosity, a unit that can help to set up the original Dragonic Kaiser Vermillion in the soul. With the last of the grade 2s being 2 copies of Dragritter Latila, with this card having the added option of being able to call out more rearguards when you played a order this turn for a Soul Blast, checking the top 2 cards of your deck and choosing a card with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard from among them and calling it to rearguard. Then an added plus 5 power for each of your opponent's open rearguards in the same column as this unit. For the grade 1s, running 4 copies of Rising Phoenix. From the drop, when any card is bound during your turn by a card effect, if you have a Vanguard with only Narukami, you can Soul Blast 1 and call this card to rearguard. So just additional boost power setup using this Rising Phoenix. And on rearguard, you can retire this unit to choose one of your units and gets plus 5 to end of turn. So not only that, but you can also use this card for the added boost power and then just call it back again when you have a card bound by your opponent's card effect. And then lastly, for the grade 1s, 4 sentinels being the Twin Buckler Dragon, just, in my opinion, to kind of fit the aesthetic for the Dragonic Kaiser deck. For the triggers, we're going with the 7 critical for the lineup. So just going with the generics for this one. If you have any of the ability triggers, you can place them for this spot. I'm also a fan of using the fronts in this deck just for the added pressure that we can provide to our rear guards and our Vanguard for the added boosted power of this card. And then the 4 heal triggers just being the generics again for this lineup, with our over trigger being the Dragveda for another restand option for our Vanguard on top of the added pressure of the damage it can provide with its own card ability. Very, very useful for that attack. It's, sad that it's only a once per turn, but still added pressure when we restand the Vanguard with that additional critical. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. And once again, as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Qualia out.